can still hear the words, as if they were etched into the polished oak of that dinner table. Vanessa's voice, sharp and perfectly controlled, cut through the laughter of Ethan's colleagues like a knife. She called me useless, said I never knew how to handle myself at these kinds of dinners. She didn't whisper it, either. She let it fall into the room, right between the crystal glasses and the glinting silverware, so that everyone heard. In that moment, I felt the air drain out of me. My cheeks burned, but I held my posture. At 71, you learn how to swallow humiliation with a tight smile. I sat there under the glow of the chandelier, listening to the clinking of forks and the polite coughs of men in suits who didn't know where to look. My own son kept his eyes down, swirling his wine, as if pretending he hadn't heard a thing. That hurt more than the insult itself. I glanced at the pie I had baked that afternoon, sitting untouched at the far end of the buffet. The golden crust was cracked just so, filled with cinnamon apples the way Ethan loved as a boy. But no one reached for it. They all piled their plates with glossy desserts from the caterer, perfectly arranged like magazine photos. My simple pie didn't belong here. Neither did I. As the evening dragged on, I thought about the decades I spent teaching children, raising my own, pinching pennies so Ethan could go to college, so he could sit at this very table with his successful friends. Every sacrifice I made had led here. And yet, somehow, here I was being treated like an embarrassment, a relic that no one knew where to place. I stared at the chandelier above us, each crystal sparkling as though mocking me. The laughter rose again around the table, but I couldn't shake the heavy truth pressing on my chest. I was invisible in my own son's home. Worse still, I was a burden. That night wasn't the beginning of Vanessa's cruelty. No, it had started months earlier, quietly, in ways I didn't see at first. If I'm honest, the signs were there when she first reached for something that wasn't hers, something I had given without hesitation, believing it would bring us closer. And that's where my real mistake began. 6 months before that dinner, before the chandelier light made me feel like an unwanted guest in my son's house. I thought I was doing something kind, something that would keep me closer to Ethan's family. Ethan had called me one afternoon, his voice soft but insistent, asking if I would consider adding Vanessa to my credit card. Just for convenience, he said, just so she could pick up things for Tyler when he needed them. I wanted to be helpful. I wanted to believe that being generous would make me feel included. So I said yes. I told myself it was no different from when I used to let Ethan borrow a few dollars for gas in college. That's what family does, we share. At first, it felt almost sweet. I noticed little charges, school supplies, medicine, a winter coat for Tyler. Each time I saw those, I smiled. It felt like I was part of raising my grandson in small, invisible ways. It was a thread connecting me to their daily life. But then the numbers grew. A dinner at a restaurant I knew I couldn't afford. A spa package in Vanessa's name. Shoes that cost more than my entire month's grocery bill. The charges stacked up like a quiet wall between us. But I tried to rationalize them. Maybe Ethan was too busy. Maybe Vanessa was just stressed. Maybe this was their way of coping. I told myself it was only money, and money wasn't worth losing peace over. I remembered the countless times I'd sacrificed my own wants to keep the family steady. I could do it again. That's what I kept repeating. But every month, the bills grew heavier, and with them, so did a strange silence between us. No one thanked me. No one even mentioned it. Instead, it was as if the more I gave, the more invisible I became. Vanessa's tone toward me sharpened. Ethan grew quieter, and I found myself shrinking into the corners of their life. Looking back, I can see how blind I was. I thought generosity would bring me closer. Instead, it gave them permission to treat me like a resource, not a person. It was subtle at first, almost invisible. But the exclusion began the moment I signed that card. And when I saw my pie untouched on that table, the truth came crashing down. I had given so much of myself away that there was nothing left of me they wanted. I couldn't take my eyes off that pie. It sat at the end of the table, the crust browned just the way my mother taught me, the cinnamon filling rich and warm. I had baked it with care that morning, imagining Ethan's smile when he tasted it, remembering how he used to sneak into the kitchen as a boy just to steal a slice before it cooled. But no one touched it. Not once. The guests circled instead around the glossy towers of desserts. Vanessa had ordered cakes dusted with powdered sugar, tarts with fruit arranged like jewels, tiny pastries that looked too perfect to eat. Their compliments flowed freely. They admired the presentation, the elegance, the extravagance. My pie might as well have been invisible. Just like me, I sat there, hands folded in my lap, pretending to sip from my glass while the laughter rolled on. Each polite smile around the table reminded me that I didn't belong in this world of polished silver and curated perfection. My offering, my piece of love and memory, had no place here. And the truth hit me hard. I had become unnecessary in my own family. For decades, I had poured myself out for Ethan, for all of them. Long nights spent grading papers after teaching all day, just to make sure he had what he needed. Years of saying no to myself so I could say yes to him. Every penny stretched, every choice made with him in mind. I thought motherhood was about building something that would last, but at that table, I realized how quickly love can be overshadowed by appearances, by money, by pride. I wasn't seen as a mother or even a person anymore. I was a fixture, an old vase tucked in the corner, something to tolerate, not cherish. It wasn't just my pie that had been overlooked. It was me. That night, I understood something I had been refusing to face for months. Vanessa had been pushing me out, piece by piece, and Ethan had let her. It wasn't only about the way she spoke to me or how she rolled her eyes when I offered to help. It was deeper. It was about control. And soon, I would see that it wasn't only my place at the table she was erasing. It was my security, too. The first time I opened the credit card bill with trembling hands, I thought there must have been a mistake. A charge for a luxury spa, another for a high-end boutique downtown, a dinner bill that was more than what I used to spend on groceries for an entire month. Page after page, the list grew longer, each item more extravagant than the last. My chest tightened as I realized these weren't errors. They were choices made with my name attached, with my trust exploited. It felt like a punch in the stomach. I thought back to the small, reasonable charges from before the school supplies, the doctor visit, the winter coat for Tyler. I had told myself those were signs of being part of their lives, of being needed. But now, staring at this bill, I saw the truth laid bare in black ink. It wasn't about family. It was about access. Access to me, to what little I had. The teacher in me couldn't help but analyze. I started circling dates, connecting the dots. One spa trip followed a particularly sharp comment Vanessa had made to me. A jewelry store purchase coincided with the weekend Ethan was too busy to return my calls. The pattern was undeniable. Vanessa was using my silence, my generosity, as permission. I tried to bring it up gently with Ethan. I told him I was concerned, that maybe there was a misunderstanding, but he barely looked up from his phone, muttered something about how Vanessa knew what she was doing, how I shouldn't worry myself. That hurt more than I can explain. My own son, the boy I raised to stand tall, now shrinking behind his wife's shadow, unwilling to see what was right in front of him. The betrayal cut deep. It wasn't just the money, it was what the money represented. Years of sacrifice, of pinching pennies, of working late into the night so Ethan could have a better life. And now, those hard-earned savings were being drained without respect, without acknowledgement. As I sat with the bill spread across my kitchen table, I felt the humiliation harden into something sharper anger. Vanessa wasn't just careless, she was calculated, and Ethan's silence, his passivity, made him complicit. I knew then I couldn't let it go. If I wanted the truth, I'd have to find it myself. Quietly, carefully, I would start watching. Because this wasn't just thoughtlessness. This was a pattern, a plan. And I was determined to uncover exactly what Vanessa was after. After that bill, I began keeping quiet records of everything. Old habits die hard. Years in the classroom taught me how to notice what others overlook: patterns in behavior. Small slips that reveal a bigger truth. So I bought a notebook and began writing. Dates, amounts, places. Every time my card was used, I wrote it down. Every time Vanessa brushed me aside at family gatherings, I noted the tone, the words, the timing. It felt like building a case. The way I used to document a struggling student's progress or a child's missteps before calling in their parents. I wasn't just collecting numbers, I was tracing behavior. And soon, the picture became painfully clear. This wasn't random indulgence, it was systematic. Vanessa was slowly stripping away any sense of control I had left. The more she spent, the less visible I became in their lives. It was as if she wanted me silent, diminished, easy to dismiss. The charges weren't just luxuries, they were markers of her power. A spa weekend here, a shopping spree there, all at the cost of my name, my credit, my security. I started noticing how the exclusion stretched beyond money. When I offered to bring dishes for family meals, she would say everything was already handled. When I tried to share a story with Ethan's friends, she cut me off, redirecting the conversation. Even Tyler, my sweet grandson, began to hesitate before running into my arms, glancing at his mother for approval first. It was all connected. Vanessa wasn't careless, she was careful. Each expense, each dismissive gesture, each cold remark was part of a larger pattern. She was reshaping the household, positioning herself at the center while pushing me to the very edges. The realization chilled me more than any insult ever could. I wasn't just being taken advantage of financially, I was being erased. My place in Ethan's home, in Tyler's life, was shrinking with every unchecked charge and every silenced moment. And yet, the teacher in me knew this was only the beginning of the lesson. If Vanessa had a plan, I needed to understand the endgame. Was it just about money? Or was it about something far more dangerous, the slow replacement of love with control? I couldn't answer that yet, but I knew where I would start with the one person she hadn't fully stolen from me. Tyler. If there was one place I still felt like myself, it was in the quiet moments with Tyler. He's only 9, full of energy and curiosity, and for a while, He was my anchor. We'd sit on the back porch together with mugs of hot cocoa, or curl up on the couch while he told me about his favorite books. When he laughed, really laughed, it was like hearing Ethan's voice all over again when he was a boy. Those moments reminded me of who I was, who I had always been: a mother, a grandmother, someone whose love was steady and unconditional. Tyler would squeeze my hand, and I'd feel a rush of warmth, believing that maybe all wasn't lost. But little by little, I noticed the changes. They were subtle at first. Tyler hesitated before accepting a cookie from me, glancing toward Vanessa as if he needed silent permission. He'd thank me politely, but his words carried a careful weight, as if he was repeating something rehearsed. Once, when I gave him a small toy, his eyes lit up, but just as quickly. He tucked it away and said he didn't want to upset his mom, that she didn't like clutter. It broke me in ways I can't explain. Tyler's innocence, his natural joy, was being shaped by rules that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with control. I could see Vanessa's hand in it, the way she taught him to prize appearances over affection, order over warmth. It was the same slow erosion I had felt myself, now being passed down to him. And I realized, with a heaviness that nearly crushed me, that this wasn't only about me being excluded, it was about what Tyler was learning from it all. If he grew up believing that love was conditional, that respect had to be earned through silence and obedience, then what kind of man would he become? I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't stand by and watch my grandson's light dim the way my own voice had been muted. Protecting my dignity wasn't enough anymore. This was about protecting him, about showing him that love isn't measured by money or appearances, but by care, by truth, by standing up even when it's hard. That realization lit a fire in me, and I knew then that I had to confront Vanessa, no matter the cost. Because if I stayed silent, I'd be teaching Tyler the very lesson she wanted him to learn, that silence means surrender. I had rehearsed the moment in my mind a dozen times. I told myself I would stay calm, that I would speak plainly, just ask for an explanation. When I finally sat across from Vanessa at that polished kitchen island, the credit card bill in my hand, my voice was steady, but my heart was pounding so hard I thought she might hear it. I asked her about the charges, the spa trips, the boutiques, the endless dinners. I wanted to believe there would be some mistake, some misunderstanding, but she didn't even flinch. She looked at me with that cool, practiced smile and brushed it off, as though I had asked about something trivial. She said it was all part of family life, that I shouldn't worry. Family shares, after all. The dismissiveness stung, but what cut deeper was Ethan's silence. My son sat at the table scrolling on his phone, not meeting my eyes. The boy I had raised to stand up for what was right couldn't even muster the courage to stand up for his own mother. That silence was louder than any insult Vanessa could have thrown. I felt my throat tighten, but something inside me wouldn't let it go. I turned back to the bill, tracing one particular charge, larger than all the rest. A payment to a development company. It didn't fit the pattern of indulgence, it was something different, bigger. So I started asking questions. I followed the paper trail, and that's when the truth hit me like a blow I never saw coming. Vanessa had used my credit card to pay the deposit on a luxury home project, one she and Ethan were planning together. A house that would have both their names on it. My money, my credit, my trust. Funding a future that didn't include me. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just the betrayal of the money, it was the erasure of me. My sacrifices, my years of saving, turned into bricks and walls that would shut me out. I had thought I was invisible before, but now I understood the depth of it. I wasn't just being excluded, I was being replaced. The room blurred around me. Vanessa's voice kept on, smooth and cold. Ethan's silence stretched thin as glass. But in my chest, something shifted. The heartbreak hardened into resolve. I realized then that I had to choose. I could stay quiet and let them build their future on my back, or I could finally stand and protect what little of myself remained. And that choice, it was already forming inside me. The morning after that discovery, I woke up with a strange calm. My heart still ached, but the haze of shock had lifted. I reached for the phone and called the credit card company. My voice didn't shake as I canceled the card, requested a freeze, and asked for the last 6 months of statements to be sent to me in writing. Each step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Then I took out a binder, the kind I used to keep for lesson plans when I was still teaching, and I began documenting everything. Dates, charges, receipts, printouts. It was tedious work, but it steadied me. My late husband used to tell me, "Truth has its own weight. Margie, put it down on paper, and it can't be ignored." His words guided my hand, and for the first time in months, I felt his presence close by, as if he was reminding me that I was not powerless. Later that week, I asked Ethan to meet me alone. I didn't raise my voice, and I didn't beg. I told him plainly that I would no longer finance his wife's ambitions at the cost of my dignity. I explained that I had canceled the card, documented every expense, and if necessary, I was prepared to protect myself legally. Ethan's face tightened, torn between the woman he married and the mother who raised him. He tried to avoid my eyes, but I kept my gaze steady. Vanessa found out soon enough. Her fury was cold and sharp, like ice splintering in water. She accused me of betrayal, of undermining her household, but I let her words wash over me. I had already made my choice. No amount of venom could unmake it. When I walked out of that house, I expected to feel hollow. Instead, I felt light. Tyler ran to the porch as I was leaving, slipping something small into my hand, a folded note with a drawing of the two of us holding hands under a big sun. In that moment, I knew the bond we shared was still alive, untouched by Vanessa's shadow. And that was worth more than any house or possession. I've thought a lot since then about what respect really means. It isn't something others can hand you like a gift. It has to be reclaimed, protected, lived out in choices that say, "I am worth more than this silence." My years as a teacher, my years as a wife and mother, all of it led me to this lesson. Love without respect is not love at all. So, I chose dignity. I chose truth. And in doing so, I showed Tyler that standing up for yourself is not selfish. It's necessary. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, I hope my story reminds you that your worth doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. Reclaim it, protect it, live it. And if this touched your heart, please like, share, and tell me your story in the comments. Your voice matters just as much as mine does.